Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for my top 5 favorite new comic books of the week. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is my top 5 favorite new comic books for this week, so out of everything that released on New Comic Book Day, and you can check out the weekly comic book review where I talk about everything that I read, but what is the creme de la creme? What is the Mount Rushmore plus the pick of the week? What are the top 5 of the week? Let's get into it. At number 5, West of Sundown, number 1, from Vault Comics. Written by Tim Seeley and Aaron Campbell, with artwork by Jim Terry, coloring by Triona Farrell, lettering by Crank. West of Sundown was a very satisfying vampire western from Vault Comics. It's got a really cool story. I think Tim Seeley and Aaron Campbell did a really great job of having well-rounded characters and an interesting concept. So this is about a vampire and her familiar, right? Her human familiar, helper, Rainfield, if you will. And in New York City, back in the day, her place of residence gets attacked, right? And she's like a high socialite vampire, well-known. She only feeds on the dregs of society, like the worst of the worst and things like that. But vampire hunters still gonna vampire hunt, right? So they burn down her house, including her coffin of sacred birth earth that she must return to each night. So now she has to trek across the country to the Old West, to her original birthplace, to find some more land. And so this is about that journey. You pretty much just get set up, you get that story, that world established, as well as these characters. I thought they were very compelling. The artwork was great. There's some really nice, fine line work that I absolutely loved. The use of inking, it had some really great texture and effects to it that were enhanced by the amazing coloring. The lettering was top-notch as well. This was a really solid one. Definitely one to keep your eyes out for. At number 4, XMen Red, number 1, from Marvel Comics. Written by Al Ewing, with artwork by Stefano Caselli, coloring by Federico Blee, and Ariana Mayer as the letterer. So X-Men Red is about the X-Men on Mars. Excuse me, Arakko. That's right, because in case you didn't realize this, Storm has terraformed Mars. They have sent all the residents of Amenth to Mars. They've renamed it Arakko, claimed dominion, and the Queen Regent is now Storm. And this is kind of like Immortal X-Men, about the political intrigue and the council, all that kind of stuff. It has that in it, but it's also delivering some really exciting bits of character work and progression, evolution even, if you will, for some of the main characters. There's really comedic work being done with Sunspot, really deep work being done with Magneto, and really exceptional work being done with Storm, plus more characters to come. I really like this book. I've been kind of low on the X-Men books right now. My interest has completely waned. I am not excited about any X books, but now that has changed because X-Men Red was a very promising first issue. I like how it took all of my expectations of what Krakoa is and what it will only be allowed to be, and it kind of changed them just a little bit. That being said, I loved the artwork, I liked the coloring, I liked the presentation. I thought it was a really cool, intriguing story that used familiar characters in familiar ways, but also trying to do something a little bit different with it. I liked it. I thought it was cool. Definitely a Marvel book to check out this week. At number 3, Firepower, number 19, from Image Comics. Written by Robert Kirkman, with artwork by Chris Samney, coloring by Matt Wilson, lettering by Wes Wooten. Firepower has been not only one of the best Image comics of the last few years, but I think it's the best Robert Kirkman book I have ever read. I love it. Some of my criticisms of Robert Kirkman do involve just talking heads, just people talking, not a lot of action, not a lot of story progression at times through action. Well, Chris Samney is such an action-oriented artist that this is a perfect pairing right here. Chris Samney is able to make the book incredibly dynamic, very fluid, and fast-moving, and Robert Kirkman is able to also keep pace with that pace established by Chris Samney, but also doing his own thing, having giant action-packed scenes, relying on pages of no text just so that Chris Samney and Matt Wilson can just absolutely shine telling the story, especially an action-driven story. Meanwhile, really great character work, some really good drama, a little bit of sadness, a little bit of despair, but mostly a very hopeful, optimistic book that does have raised stakes. This is a great book for fans of Kung Fu movies, fans of Iron Fist, fans of Shang-Chi. This book is awesome. The artwork, the marriage of the artwork and the writing has leveled everybody up, and the story moves so quick. We're at issue 19, the start of the 4th graphic novel volume, basically, and no other story from Robert Kirkman moves this fast, and I absolutely love it. It's got a great pace to it. It's exactly what the book needs to be. If you are craving more dynamic, kinetically charged action in comic books, look no further than Firepower. At number 2, Little Monsters, number 2 from Image Comics. Written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Dustin Nguyen, lettering by Steve Wands. So I thought that the first issue of Little Monsters was pretty decent. It was a little bit of a setup, the briefest of setups and character introductions, but it didn't really quite have a gnarly hook to really hook me into picking up the next issue. That being said, Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen and Steve Wands have already done so much amazing work together that they have justified a blind buy on issue number 2 from me. I loved issue number 1 to a point story-wise, but I adored it as far as the art goes. The art has leveled up yet again. In Little Monsters, Dustin Nguyen is not necessarily doing his watercolor style. He's doing a lot of stuff in grayscale and gray tone, right? So he's using screen tones, whether it's digitized or not. I'm pretty sure it's digitized, but it absolutely works. And it's giving us these different values that makes a really elegant composition that has depth to it and also still is able to emote with the characters. So this story is about kid vampires, and apparently they've been lied to for a while, because what happens in issue number 2 is that one of them finds out that they've been lied to by whoever turned them, and that's a story we're going to get, but it sets the story on its path. It's just enough of a turn towards the end of issue number 2. That's the hook we needed. In fact, issue 1 and 2 probably should have been combined into one oversized issue. I would have paid $5.99 for it and had a much more enjoyable experience. That being said, issue number 2 was awesome. It provided the hook that I was waiting to sink my teeth into. The artwork was absolutely amazing. The style of it, I really like it. It's compared to Lord of the Flies, Children of the Corn, but with vampires, and it definitely does have that energy, but it's also trying to do something visually and narratively on its own. Jeff Lemire, Dustin Nguyen, Steve Wands, they're on a book I'm going to write, I'm going to read it, and most likely I'm going to enjoy it. And at number 1, Red Room, Trigger Warnings, issue number 2 from Fantagraphics, written and illustrated and lettered by Ed Piskor. I'm just loving Red Room so much. I loved this book from when it first started because I am a giant fan of horror. Even what some might call torture porn. You know, that Saw, that hostile kind of movement. Some people think it's too gross, it goes too far. I think sometimes it doesn't go far enough. Red Room goes far enough, and then beyond that, just a few steps. So it's got gnarly, visceral, grotesque gore in it. So if that's not your thing, you're not going to like the book. But also what Ed Piskor is able to do narratively, I think he's just getting better and better as a writer as the story goes. First of all, he's telling self-contained stories, but they're all part of a larger world and a larger narrative that does build on itself. So that's amazing how he's able to do that. He's getting even better at the single issue story. In volume 1, they all worked, they all slapped, but they did feel like they were just more chapters within an overall thing. These really feel like just one-shot comics, but of course in a world, a shared world, if you will. And it is building up to something. We're introduced to the new characters, the pumpkins in here. It's basically a Bonnie and Clyde, a young Bonnie and Clyde meet the Red Room kind of vibe. They decide that the allure of the money, the glamour, the fame, and the murder is too much for them. They decide to join into the Red Rooms, but in their own way. So this tells their story from start to finish in a really interesting way with twists and turns, and I like those twists and turns. I thought this was probably, honestly, the best issue of Red Room we've had yet, and I absolutely adore the series. What is it about, in case you don't know, because I've talked about it a lot? It is about webcam live-streamed murders on the dark web. So they're called Red Rooms, right? And people pay in Bitcoin, and it's exploring so much about this world at large in the dark web, the seedy stuff of the Red Rooms in particular. And this one is focusing on some of the killers, some of the people. Why are they allured? Why are they brought into this world? What makes it appealing to them? What makes the mind of a serial killer? And how do they talk about it in and of themselves? And can you actually escape the grip of the Red Rooms? Anyway, I'm rambling on. The character design of the pumpkins is absolutely fascinating, striking visually. Piscor continues now to work with color a little bit in trigger warnings, and he's using it to maximum effect. I absolutely love this book. And this, by far, to me, was the best book of the week. So that's my top 5. What are you reading? What are you digging? What's your top 5 favorite comic books of the week? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time here on the channel. We get Doug Wagner, Tim Odlin, the creators of the upcoming Image comic, Beware Odin's Eye. I am really freaking excited, or Beware the Eye of Odin. That's what it is. Beware the Eye of Odin. It's a cool concept. Cool dudes. I'm excited to have them on the channel. Hope you get to join us. But be sure to join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, including the newest one, the James Bond podcast, and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, ba-boom!